My name's Astra, and I'm an architect and an independent filmmaker. The idea behind the website is to actually create something that is visually pleasing to the beholder, because right now everything's so serious and dreary and over this and over that and blah blah blah, and we want to have some fun with it, that we're using animation, we're using interviews from different people to just convey certain messages so that people say, hey, we can do it too, and to give it more accessibility to people as a tool, and we don't want it to be such a serious matter. The idea behind Toronto 2050 came about 10 years ago when I went to a master class with a production designer who did work for Steven Spielberg. And he was talking about pre visualization. And I was so fascinated by that because at the time I was working as an art director in film and production designer. And in the master class, he showed this wonderful organic tool of how you make a movie where you pre-visualize the movie before you actually start the movie. And so I thought, if they can do it with film, why can't we do it with our city? For Toronto, we desperately need pre-visualization. We have the tools available, we have all the technology available, we have all the talent available, but nobody is showing us the real picture. And I think that pre-visualization of the city would be the first step in moving towards the future. So, just to give you a little bit of background, I've been an activist for the pedestrian and urban space for the last 30 years, and I've been proposing different solutions for the city. The city always says we're interested in creative thinking, but the moment I walk into City Hall, they always close the door in my face, and I wonder why that happens. And it happens to a lot of people because we're using old tools to create a modern city. And by pre-visualizing, which is a great tool, then you can see the context. Toronto never shows the context. They always show the building and it doesn't show the surrounding. And you don't see the waterfront. You might see a three-dimensional model, but you don't see how it affects the rest of the city. You see a house landing into a new neighborhood, but you don't see the context. You see buildings and projects, but never the context. And that's what Toronto does, which is not the right way to plan. You have to plan the context. I would create a three-dimensional model of the entire city as it is currently zoned. And so you say this is the basis, and then you overlay the different aspects onto it so that whenever a project comes, you can just put the project, then you would immediately know shadow and light studies, you would know its context, everything. The problem in Toronto is that people are never informed enough, and it's always, whenever a project comes, it becomes NIMBYism because nobody knows what is actually going on. And so it's better to show the real picture, and not just of one building, but of an entire block. You need to have a vision for the entire city. So that's why you first pre-visualize the city as it is, as it's planned, as it's outlined in the so-called official plan. And then once you go there, then you say, how is it working? What is missing? How do you create the transit? How do you create economic nodes? How do you create opportunities for people? Right now, it's just, everyone is just, as you can see in our current transit planning, we've changed it 3 times in one location because there isn't a plan for the city. Since amalgamation, Toronto is broken because now they have divided the city into 44 wards, and each ward only discusses ward specific. Nobody ever talks about the city as a whole as an organic model that you can actually plan. Instead, everyone's always talking about making deals with underzoned areas and Section 37. That's not how you plan. That's planning corruption, because once you're using deal making, and I would say Section 37 should go just into social housing all over the city, so you don't have these politicians fighting for something. You have to have a plan. It's when you make a movie, you have a script. We don't have a script in Toronto.